Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of RayShoots. So about a month ago, I was kind of inspired to be able to start doing more of a filmic style kind of projects, to kind of add some more to my creativity in the industry. So this is our short, Good Grief, written by Mandi Maxwell and directed by her as well. And on this one, I'm going to go do a little behind the scenes of what kind of things we ran into, lessons learned behind this particular part of the project, things that I would change to kind of help on my next project in the future. So let's move on. All right, so here we are in Premiere, of course. I just basically use Premiere to use After Effects to connect to do a little bit of my text and titling and everything, and of course do some of the audio down here. As you can see, the bottom here is turned off because I did all the coloring in DaVinci. I like the DaVinci side, a lot better coloring to me, and I like the tools that you can use in DaVinci, a little bit easier, and you can be a little more precise to me on DaVinci than you can be in Premiere. But let's go ahead and go into After Effects where I can actually write on the screen here for you guys. To start off, let me go ahead and fast forward here. Okay, so little things that I noticed about this particular scene. There's a few problems I ran into to start off with. Down here at the bottom, there is a tungsten light. Up here at the top, there is another tungsten light. But then up here, I actually have a 120D, and it is a daylight balanced light from Aperture, but I did put a blue gel in it to better match the lighting. Of course, I didn't double check it, so the lighting does still look off. I should have taken the time to actually, film recorded the scene and saw what the practicals were doing before I started lighting it, and that's lesson learned, and I've definitely taken that in from this point on. Okay, so we're gonna move forward. So yeah, so that was my first issue, which of course made a lot of the coloring issues for me. So then what I did for coloring is I basically just focused on their two faces, and I took the note, like, I'm going to ignore the fact that the background is all kinds of colors from greens to blues to oranges. I mean, I am all over the spectrum in the background. Now, compared to my last one, we shot this whole scene on the Ronin, and so I'm following along. I'm going to actually lower this a little bit. So I'm following along here. Okay, yeah, that was fun. They fought this a few times. The fun fact on the side for the behind the scenes, Mark actually brought a bunch of bottles, like empty bottles, and added to the scene, which, okay, this is supposed to be a scene where we have a really nice, a bachelor pad for a gentleman. It's supposed to be his place. And of course, he has some really nice knives, as you probably noticed there. So I set up my follow focus on the Ronin so that Austin was able to play AC for me. So he was able to pull focus while I was just running with the Ronin without having to think about how's the focus going along. Because what I did is I still wanted to keep the same lenses that I was using throughout the scene. So this one's actually with the 35mm. He did a really good job keeping the focus where it needed to be at. And I'm really happy about that. I'm moving a lot and he's moving a lot, and it worked out really well. Okay, so here's a lighting issue that we ran into, that I did the coloring on this project several times to get these guys' skin tones to be happy. I'll put it that way. A happy medium for me. I was happy with how they looked at this point. So the lighting here, we have above his head is a tungsten light. To the right of him, I have a 300D hitting the wall, and it's shooting light to kind of fill in the room a little bit at about 60%. And then as you can see, this is a little blue, and that's because there's another bulb over here that's giving a different light. So obviously the room had different bulbs itself, and we had the opportunity to replace them, but we were definitely out of time. And I was like, no, we need to get these shots done so I can get moving, and I shouldn't have done that. As I talked about, if you watch my other video on the behind the scenes of the last video we did, that was the morning of this day, I talked about how I should have really taken my time, and honestly, this is one of those moments I should have taken my time. Lesson learned, moving forward. Okay, so Mark's on the phone. He's about to hear some bad news. He does a really great job with his acting. I love the eye. You gotta watch the eyes. It goes far. Okay, so here's our wide shot. This is great. So I can show you guys the lighting issue I was running into. I've got some blue. There's another bit of light, and look at this harsh light over here, making this weird shadow and this weird shadow, and I've got another shadow. Like, there's no weird shadow over here. There's a weird shadow. Look at this, got two light shadows. So again, a lesson learned to kind of take my time. And one thing I'd like to have down the road is maybe a color meter to be able to see the color of lights that are coming out, because obviously the bulbs were different colors, and the lights themselves do a decent job of staying pretty close to each other if you use the same manufacturer. So things to kind of note for my future uses. Hurry up. All right, so we laid out the scene. We actually did make a mess of this right here. This is our lunch from earlier. You know, the one thing I didn't do was have any audio of the leathery seat, which you hear later in one of the shots because they're so close to it later, but noted, more audio. Okay, so so we changed the focal length. So I went from this is a 25 millimeter to this is, I believe, the 50. And the one thing we actually didn't do with that we didn't do in here, which is a good thing, is I didn't move the lights around. And so the lighting does stay the same in terms of where they're located to the actors this whole time. We didn't change that part. And I'm very glad about that. All right, now I'm gonna put the 85 on him because I put the 85 on here to get closer into the character because, you know, he's becoming more emotional and the whole scene is getting more emotional. So I zoomed in even more to get that. Okay, so I left it on the 85 to get this one. And now this is where I had one more other issue is I no longer had the focus pull system on the camera. And what I was probably should have done is I should have been looking at the bigger monitor. I started looking at the little monitor on my Ep6B, and that's not a very good indication of where focus is at. As you can see, she's out of focus here. He's starting to slowly go out of focus. Really, the only thing in focus is his ear. So really, the only problem I have with this particular video is the fact that the lighting was a little bit all over. I was quite disappointed about it. I'm happy I was able to find a medium or a middle ground for me that I felt comfortable with the way it looked. But again, so my lessons learned on this one is basically take your time, look at your lighting, see what's the practicals, turn off the practicals if you have to, and add your own lighting that you know matches. And so that was my lesson to learn on this particular project. Overall, I really had a lot of fun. Mark and Jacinta did a great job as actors on this project. Manny wrote a really great script for them to read. Thanks to the team that was behind the scenes with me, Liam, Austin, Robin, and Epek. I enjoy doing these kind of projects. I hope to keep doing them to keep getting better and better at this side of the craft. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys another time.